We're going to try this again. Dzień dobry. Oh, come on, seriously. You guys have caffeine. Bodies are pulsing with caffeine now. Dzień dobry. There we go. Everyone looks very well caffeinated. So coming here today, my kids tried to give me some advice. They said, Dad, whatever you do, don't try to be too charming or too witty or intellectual. Just be yourself. So the next session, now you get it. The next session is over tourism, which is really another way of saying we messed up tourism. And here's the thing. Good judgment comes from bad experiences. And bad experiences comes from bad judgment. So we're in this vicious cycle. And let me start by bringing up the representative from the distinguished cities that are making presentations today, and then I'll bring up the introductory speaker. So we have today, first, from Uruguay, Colonia del Sacramento, we have Walter De Benedetti. We have Walter. Where's Walter? Did I say that right? De Benedetti. If you would join us on the white chairs over here. From Bordeaux, France, we have Edouard Berton Sarindat. I hope I got that right too. Is Edouard here? Yes, great. If you could join us here. And then we have, of course, the outspoken mayor of Dubrovnik, Mato Frankovic. If you would join on stage here. And to lead off this session with our introductory talk we have, I'm really honored because I spent some time with him last night, and he's really a fun guy, and I know you're going to enjoy listening to him today. You're in for a treat. He is the associate professor at Breda University, and he co-authored the UN WTO report on over-tourism. I think you were the author who did most of the work, right? I always am. You always do all the work, okay. The other guy just signed his name at the end. He's going to provide you some new ideas on overcrowding that you may have never considered before, and they're going to help really put things in perspective. So to set the tone for this next session, couldn't be more honored. Come on up and join us. Let's give a big round of applause to Cole Kerch. Here we go.
Are we ready? Yeah. I'll get on with it straight away because I have a lot to say, I think, and I am always late, so hope to be in time this time. Introduction over tourism. And with an introduction, I'll try and say, I would like to start just by making clear some of what I see misconceptions that sometimes relate to over tourism, and just give you an introduction of how I see the topic, based on my experience. Over tourism, what we see is that tourism to cities is growing, like World Heritage cities, rapidly growing tourism, and in a way that's a good thing, because cities are much more resilient, have much greater networks and facilities to deal with a lot of guests. They have a lot of guests permanently, their residents. So they're far more dynamic, for example, than Mount Everest. I'm certain you've seen the photo. Luckily, in cities, that won't happen that quickly. And also what you see is with the new developments, you have a lot of new tourism products coming, like this in Rio de Janeiro. You can really get up close and personal with all that lovely heritage that's there. But is that really a good idea always? I mean, that is basically what we're talking about here, over tourism. We need to be a bit careful, because tourism is not a panacea. There's a lot of pressure now on local culture, local heritage and the environment. And you see in a lot of cities already that support for tourism is losing out on that. Now that is important, but before we think about that, let's first come back to over-tourism, because what is over-tourism really? I think it's not one type of impact, and I am always a bit worried about the term over-tourism, because it suggests that it's just about too many people. And yes, too many people can be a problem. Absolutely true. We've seen all the photos. But it's more diverse than that. It can also be too much impact. You do not need a lot of tourists to have a negative impact. I, for work, sometimes need to be in Amsterdam, don't live there, but I work there sometimes. And I go by bicycle, I'm Dutch. There is nothing in the world more annoying than I cycle, I'm in a massive rush, and I get to my traffic light, it's on red, but I know it's on red, and I know I can get through, because it's a useless traffic light, I know the city. I arrive, and bang, there's a couple of tourists there waiting for the red traffic light. Who in their right mind stops for a red traffic light? And of course, they just stick to the rules. I know the informal road rules and just adjust my behavior to it. People who live in the city do that very often on loads of different occasions. And visitors often just don't get it. So it's not malignant when we talk about adverse impact. Yes, it's also the drunk tourists who cause a lot of nuisance, but it's much more subtle than that as well. And thirdly, it's also too much tourism infrastructure, which I've already heard quite a bit in the previous discussions. Tourism infrastructure is competing with the local retail, the local infrastructure, and it can lead to monocultures, and particularly in heritage cities. I would say, like, this monoculture is very dangerous because it's endangering the uniqueness of the city. So 3 different types of impacts that require very different approaches to deal with. It's not one size fits all. We need to look at the local context. What are the issues? What is happening here? And manage it in a way that fits with that local context. Another thing that I not always see happening is that people tend to see over-tourism as a tourism problem. In my perspective, it's not a tourism-only problem at all. It's a social problem, and it can be an outing of other social problems too. Now, undoubtedly, I'm not saying anything strange when I say that there are certain trends in tourism that have caused over-tourism. You can see them on the left. There are several others, but are just basically for reference. But the ones on the right, you don't hear so much about. Basically, the number of people in cities is rising worldwide. Those people live there day in, day out. The number of commuters is also rising worldwide in cities. They also make use of the city. So the city infrastructure is having to cope with this additional stress. And on top of that come the tourists. So it's a mixed message. And it's the same thing if you look at real estate speculation. Those tourism shops are partially there because it's become so expensive to rent that local shops can't afford it, and tourism shops have higher margins. So there is an underlying problem there. Same with Airbnb. New ways of working. Now you can see it in different ways. Residents work much more in cafes nowadays, like gig economy. You have freelance work compared to 20 years ago. That's much more common. But it's also, we work much more on different times of the day and in the weekends, etc., when there's also many visitors. So that means that we get more in touch with each other. And if I am working, I don't really want to engage with a local. Might be me being antisocial, but I need to work. Also, the better connectivity makes opponents easier visible. So it's great, social media, because it's maybe brought out some murmurings in the cities that have now basically just found a platform to come up. So it's complicated. It's a very complicated issue. And you need to manage that. Basically, quote from Tel Aviv, growth is not the enemy, it's how we manage it. It's very, very forceful on this, so I think it's a bit more nuanced, but I do agree that we just need to manage it. We cannot sit back and just let the world go to hell. We need to work on it. What I'm now going to talk about is some things that we found, research on dealing with visitors. We started our work in 2014 and have done a lot of work with cities, experts, see the cities here, and got several feedback sessions too. It's resulted in several UNWTO reports. The second one is just out, and some of you here have contributed to it, so thank you very much. And that has a lot of examples of how cities deal with over-tourism, so very interesting. The first one has more the framework. I'm going to explain a bit from that. What we found in our research is that there's a great awareness and willingness among cities nowadays to cope with this. And that's great. It's a difference from 5, 6 years ago, when there was much less of that. But now, practically every city is on the ball. It's so common. We need to do something with it. And a lot of things are happening. We found 70 types of policies and 11 main strategies. There's probably more. But a lot of things happening. I'll quickly talk you through those 11 strategies. Just very quickly. You can find them elsewhere. But it's here they are. Firstly, regulation. although I don't like the term over-tourism, I do think the debate is actually very interesting because it's brought back some sense of maybe we need regulation. Maybe we need a government steering us. We need a strategy, we need a vision. And that's fairly new. But I think it's positive because it allows someone to take control again of what's happening. Visitor segmentation, we all want cultural tourists, spreading visitors to the city, around the city. It's getting a bit of bad press nowadays, and it's now more used to stimulate economic development outside of tourism. We have time-based rerouting. That can be, by the way, during the year or during the course of a day. For example, you make Sunday mornings free. Itineraries to go to other places, improve city infrastructure, very important, incredibly difficult to achieve. But it's seen as one of the most powerful ones. Creating joint experiences. What we see here, for example, in Copenhagen, they say, we create experiences for our residents and visitors can join in. But it's for the residents, so it's joint. Financial benefits, or even not financial ones, so make people benefit from the visitor economy. For example, a non-economic one is you can keep public transport open by using tourists, making use of it. We have communicating with visitors and with local stakeholders. Very important, we've heard it already several times, particularly with regards to heritage. Communication is key. People need to know what's going on and what is our heritage? What is tourism? What is it doing? Unless we can get that straight, we are going to have a problem. And finally, responsive measures. What you see now is that a lot of it is just, we measure and then suddenly we see that there's a problem at a certain area. Longer term, you can start using big data for this to prevent problems because you know when there will be certain stresses in certain parts of the city based on historic data and on big data. But that's not really happening yet. Some examples of things that are happening. I mean, it's always nice to have some examples. London has made a mobile gaming app to encourage visitors to go to other destinations than they would normally go to, so spread out a little bit and create a better experience for the visitor. We have in Salzburg, they have created a joint identity with their regions, enlarging their area whilst keeping the same kind of spirit. And it's this whole Sound of Music thing, which I've never seen the film. I hope it's nice, but a lot of people like it. One of my personal favorites comes from Paris. It's now used in other cities as well. Street artists are used to fight noise pollution. So particularly in suburban areas, where noise pollution is an issue, you can use street artists who basically guide you to places where you can talk a bit more, or they can tell you just to quiet them down a bit. Now, that's brilliant. I think if I lived there, it'd be nice and quiet. It's also brilliant because I have young children. Any chance I get to take them out of the house and be entertained by some street artists, I would jump on it. It's amazing. I love them dearly, but it's hard work. So it's a great one. Policies for how to behave. So this is just communicating with your visitors. What do we do? And this is a new one. It's used in Bruges and in Amsterdam, an obligation to use earphones and a microphone when you have large groups. It's not a rocket science one, but it's very interesting to see that this new type of legislation or regulation is starting to take off again. It's nice. Some problems, though. You see a lot of the solutions now remain focused on the effects of tourism. It's not preempting it, like what Doug Lenski said at the very start of this conference. It's focusing on the effects. And what we also see, one of the reasons is that it's difficult to reach stakeholders. We say, like, we need a vision. Okay, who's going to make the vision? We don't know. Government needs to make the vision. There is no such thing as government. There's different departments. Who's going to be in charge? It's difficult. So those are two key problems. But it is key to solving that. Because I really think, as I said before, we have the problem that tourism is not over-tourism is not a tourism-only problem. So we need to move beyond just seeing it with tourism departments or tourism eyes or heritage eyes. We need to get everyone involved. And hopefully then we can create an adaptive city that can cope with this. big question is how. Like I can leave you now and then you think, yeah, you've told everything, but we have no idea how we're going to do it. But we'll go to the dark side. We're going to try to instigate change, or I'll give you some ideas on what I think could be useful. And this is basically my key point. If only in dealing with all the issues that we see with over-tourism, we would talk to each other, with each other, rather than about each other. And that's happening a lot now. It's a problem, but people are working on it. With residents, a lot is happening. I really like the new Tourism Flanders strategy, the one on the right there. They are really engaging with residents and also with some other stakeholders. But it can be simpler. In Berlin, they do have a coffee, tell us what you want, get a free coffee, but you need to talk about tourism and what you want. What do you think is good, what is bad? And in other cities, online voting consultation is done, a bit like a referendum, but then in a positive way, and talking with residents in just group sessions. So that is something that cities deal with a bit. The big problem lies with those stakeholders. How do you get people with completely opposite interests on the table? Done a lot of work on it now, and this is what we've come up with as a solution. It's a serious game. And its pure goal is to bring stakeholders together to learn about each other's perspectives. What is it? It's a serious game. So we have a board game, physical, because we need people to touch not touch each other, but to touch key coins and that sort of thing. But it's linked to a digital dashboard. A model is behind it, which gives outcomes based on the data that we gathered during the course of 5 years. Some policy cards and some personas. There's no one tourist, there's no one resident. And here's just some images that we have during that. It's always good fun. People are enthusiastic about it, and they really enjoy seeing the complexity of tourism in this wider context. Like, they really say, oh my God, we thought we knew, but after a couple of rounds, you played in rounds, people suddenly say, oh, if we work together, we might actually solve this problem. And it's like, bang, that's what we want. So it serves a purpose there. Other positive points you see there, the problem is it needs a follow-up to continue the discussion. On its own, it's not enough. Some concluding remarks. And basically, I've just already said this, it's not enough to look at the individual issues. We see a lot of experimenting, which is great. Like we already heard about Barcelona. It's basically a lot of these cities have become, well, it's a horrible term, but living labs. But there's a lot of things going on. Great, we can experiment. We need vision and strategy. We need leaders with an idea, and we need somebody to dare to take decisions. And sharing information is key. Really, we've got a lot of information, but if you have any innovative ideas, please share them with me. I will also share them with the research group, the expert group, to see if we can make something of this together so we can better share our ideas and move beyond this. Speaking of which, there's several cities here who have probably great ideas, and I'd love to hear from them. So I'll stop talking. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Great, thank you very much. Why don't we start out with Walter? Thank you very much. We're going to start out with Walter. We're going to work right down the line. So the floor is yours, and you've got some time on the clock. Look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Muchas gracias por la invitación. Thank you for the invitation. Merci beaucoup. Je suis honoré de ser ici. Voy a hablar en español, por si quieren ponerse los traductores. Les voy a hablar de una pequeña ciudad en Sudamérica, que es patrimonio de la humanidad desde 1995. Está ubicada en Sudamérica, en la zona suroeste del Uruguay, y es miembro de la OCPM casi desde los orígenes. La verdad que venimos regularmente a estos congresos y siempre es una interesante experiencia para aprender. Nosotros es una ciudad fundada por portugueses, es una ciudad relativamente nueva, fundada en 1680. En realidad ya había visitas desde 1516, tanto de Solís como de Magallanes en 1520, pero la fundación real se hizo en 1680. Durante 100 años, España y Portugal, en aquella época Rusia, Estados Unidos, si lo tendríamos que trasladar a hoy, los dos imperios que dividían el mundo, se disputaron la ciudad por estar en un lugar absolutamente estratégico en la entrada al Río de la Plata, al río Uruguay y toda la entrada a la América del Sur profunda, con todas las connotaciones que eso implicaba en aquella época con el tema del oro y la plata. Por lo tanto, la ciudad estuvo sitiada muy habitualmente, cambiamos 7 veces de manos entre imperios en esos 100 años. El sitio estaba sitiado en el Real de San Carlos y el sitio es una ciudad amurallada, estaba rodeado continuamente. Y eso se los explico porque en realidad la ciudad tiene una conformación urbana que deriva de esa situación y con esa idea fuimos coherentes en el desarrollo patrimonial. Por supuesto que al haber tantos sitios hubo una cantidad de naufragios, pecios en términos de técnicos de patrimonio. Y por supuesto hay una cantidad de reservas, hay una cantidad de restos de cerámica portuguesa, cerámica española, inglesa y demás. Trabajo que estamos ahora haciendo con la Universidad de la República, un estudio de toda el área insular y todo el área del agua a los efectos de generar conocimientos científicos sobre el lugar. También, por supuesto, la conformación de la ciudad, porque aunque españoles y portugueses comparten la península ibérica, hacen ciudad absolutamente distinto. Cuando uno ve una ciudad fundada por portugueses o una ciudad fundada por españoles, como uno viene yo soy arquitecto, vengo del ordenamiento territorial antes de mi diplomatura en patrimonio, o sea que vengo desde lo macro hacia el patrimonio. Para mí la trama urbana significa muchas cosas y cómo se hace ciudad. Y el urbanismo español tiene una lógica y tiene un libro y tiene unas formas de hacer ciudad. Todo el catálogo de leyes de India, las ciudades son rectangulares de 100 varas por 20 varas, norte, sur, este, oeste. Y el portugués eran generalmente soldados y navegantes y la prioridad era adaptarse al terreno, que la ciudad se defendiera de alguna manera, que tuviera cortadas las grandes avenidas, no hay una continuidad. Por lo tanto, la ciudad termina en una ciudad amurallada portuguesa, una ciudad fuera que era la ciudad rural portuguesa y la ciudad moderna, cuando ya el Imperio Español fue quien determinó el crecimiento de la ciudad, se nota la cuadrícula. Ahí en la punta está la ciudad portuguesa y después cómo fue creciendo la ciudad española, ¿no? Es muy claro y es muy atípico en América porque en general o fueron fundadas por un imperio o por otro. Nosotros tenemos la combinación y es una de las tantas razones por las cuales la denominación de patrimonio mundial. Bien, obviamente estamos frente a Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires tiene 8 millones de habitantes. Colonia del Sacramento es una pequeña ciudad, 30.000 habitantes. Por lo tanto, es obvio decirlo que tenemos mucho turismo, no solo argentino, sino brasilero y europeo, americano, en general de todo el mundo. Es muy común en mi ciudad, como ustedes están acostumbrados en Europa, pero en América no lo es tanto, encontrar turistas de todo el mundo hablando todos los idiomas posibles. Entonces, ¿qué pasa cuando una ciudad tiene esa situación? Tenemos una especie de crisis de éxito, ¿sí? Tenemos mucho turismo. Obviamente empieza el sobreuso del espacio público, el aumento comercial en desmedro de la vivienda, la expulsión de la población y que se va perdiendo esa residencia. ¿Qué hacer ante esta situación? Bien, lo primero, bueno, en el plan de gestión del sitio de Patrimonio Mundial tuve la suerte de ser uno de sus directores, trabajamos con expertos internacionales de excelente nivel que nos ayudaron mucho. Y se trataba de ser coherente con un plan de ordenamiento territorial, que esa es la primera cosa que es fundamental, y generar un desarrollo patrimonial sostenible. Obviamente hubo un intenso fomento de la participación ciudadana, un cuidado de los espacios públicos, empezar a hacer un freno en la residencia, frenando los comercios. Nosotros en realidad prohibimos nuevos comercios. Hicimos una medida cautelar que impide que aquellos padrones que no han sido comerciales no puedan serlo. Es una medida dura, que recibo muchas presiones por eso, pero bueno, es parte del trabajo. Eso también de alguna manera genera que el gobierno local busque un equilibrio en el centro histórico, buscando una nueva centralidad. Y una cosa que me costó bastante convencer al gobierno local, pero creo que ahora todos estamos contentos del resultado, es que a veces invertir fuera del sitio ayuda a mejorar el sitio de patrimonio mundial. En principio, cuando se los planteaba a mis conciudadanos y al gobierno, ¿cómo que vamos a mejorar el barrio histórico si invertimos fuera del barrio histórico? Pero en realidad eso sí pasa y realmente ayuda a esta gran presión que sufre un sitio cuando uno le genera a otros. Entonces, obviamente no abandonamos el sitio. Estamos continuamente trabajando. Este es un proyecto que hice yo, más allá de que me toca un tema de gestión, soy arquitecto y no puedo olvidarlo, así que sigo diseñando. Diseñamos una nueva señalética, un trabajo de iluminación, una puesta en valor. Esta es la casa de los gobernadores. Descubrimos una antigua iglesia portuguesa que estaba ahí trabajando en continuidad, que obviamente son los restos, al lado de la basílica, que es obviamente una construcción española. Todo un trabajo de información web a través de códigos QR, una nueva iluminación que le dio al espacio público una calidad. Pero a la vez no nos estamos olvidando que hay que desarrollar actividades fuera. Nosotros tenemos un complejo que se llama el Complejo Mianovic, que es de 1910, es una plaza de toros, una cancha de paleta, un hotel casino, una usina de electricidad, un lugar de desarrollo en 1910, en una pequeña ciudad. Generamos este tipo de actividades, como es el mapping, para que se reunieron 6.000 personas para mirarlo, de forma de empezar a sacar actividades de ese lugar. Y también empezamos a trabajar con la comunidad porque tenemos una plaza de toros. En Uruguay las corridas de toros están prohibidas desde 1912. Están prohibidas por maltrato animal. O sea que no estamos pensando en volver a tener corridas de toros, pero tenemos un lugar que es hermoso, que se está cayendo, que es también no solo una arquitectura neomorisca, sino además una tecnología innovadora, porque es una cantidad de cosas prefabricadas, es de 1910. Piensen ustedes que el hormigón armado se inventó a finales del 19. Estamos hablando de que aquí, en una pequeña ciudad en el sur de Sudamérica, se estaba poniendo tecnología en todas las gradas, armando hormigón prefabricado, gradas, una serie de estructuras de hierro que se armaron como un gran mecano en tiempo récord. Y la comunidad que está pidiendo que recuperemos ese lugar. Entonces, ese trabajo con la comunidad fue muy interesante. Este es el proyecto que estamos pensando. Mi segunda intervención como arquitecto es de mi debilidad, discúlpenme, es un grupo de trabajo muy grande, pero yo fui el proyectista de este trabajo. Es un lugar que va a ser cultura y deportes, lo vamos a dedicar a todo el tema de cultura y deportes, lo vamos a hacer en un abierto por obras, es decir, tenemos previsto empezar las obras dentro de 3 meses y espero que en el 4.º mes ya estemos ingresando al ruedo, porque hace mucho que está cerrado y hace mucho que no se mantiene, hay un edificio que no se mantiene, los monumentos históricos que no se usan, que no se mantienen, están condenados al deterioro y por eso hay ahí en algún lugarcito unos restos que van a quedar y por supuesto rehabilitamos solo 1/3 de este lugar, porque enfrente va a quedar consolidado una serie de gradas, pero como una interesante reflexión. Miren qué le pasa a los monumentos cuando uno no los cuida, ¿sí? Entonces, obviamente, la rehabilitación patrimonial es prioridad. Vengo del patrimonio, soy el director del patrimonio, o sea que tengo una obligación doble y moral, porque se está mirando. Obviamente es un monumento histórico nacional, por lo tanto tuvimos también una coordinación con las autoridades nacionales. Obviamente aquí hay tecnología de la época y tecnología actual, no les voy a contar porque no tengo tiempo, pero están todas las tecnologías puestas al servicio de la comunicación, de la música, del teatro, de los deportes, ¿sí? Y además es una apuesta coherente, integrada para todo el barrio de Real San Carlos. Obviamente eso busca la reducción del sobreuso del sitio de patrimonio mundial, tiene algunas innovaciones de tipo de aislación acústica y demás, que buscando la imitación del ruedo, del redondel de madera, en realidad es un panel acústico, pero de alguna manera hace que la gente visualice cómo es realmente una plaza de toro, con un uso totalmente distinto. Y este es el final, ya estoy en mi tiempo, el patrimonio, la cultura, el deporte, esto es lo que se va a ver como resultado final. Obviamente tiene accesibilidad, ascensores, baño para discapacitados. Eso, no tengo que decirles que obviamente todo lo que hoy se exige para un centro moderno de cultura, tienda de merchandising, un museo taurino, un lugar de exposiciones y una cafetería están ahí, sino que además buscamos que el deporte y la cultura sea el desarrollo sustentable y una mejora de calidad de vida, y para no olvidarnos, nuestras ciudades, nuestros monumentos son el rostro tangible de nuestra identidad, pero coexiste con ellos una expresión más sutil, intangible, nuestros modos de ser, de pensar, la visión del mundo, nuestra cultura. Esa combinación de ambas cosas, materiales y inmateriales, es lo que hace único a los sitios. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias por eso. Hay mucha información muy interesante. Para la próxima, para le prochain, Monsieur Patron Serendat, the floor is yours, de la belle ville de Bordeaux.
Hello, everyone. Je vais profiter de l'interprétation pour m'exprimer dans ma langue maternelle, le français. Je vais vous parler de l'illustration de la politique bordelaise sur le changement d'usage, qui est un instrument réglementaire, en fait, qui existe depuis 1945 en France, qui est posé par le Code de la construction et de l'habitation, et qui est un outil qui vise à protéger le logement. Cet outil réglementaire qui n'était appliqué qu'à Paris retrouve de l'actualité avec la problématique de ce qu'on appelle le surtourisme, ou du moins les conséquences de la massification touristique. Alors, en quoi ça consiste en deux mots? Le changement d'usage, c'est un instrument au service de la protection du logement. Donc, il faut bien comprendre ici que l'application de cette règle a pour porte d'entrée la protection du logement. C'est bien le logement ici qui va être le départ de l'analyse. Très rapidement, je vous dresse le portrait du contexte bordelais. Bordeaux a connu un renouveau depuis 1995 avec une politique de grands travaux. Et actuellement, on en voit les effets avec une très forte attractivité, aussi bien pour des nouveaux Bordelais qui souhaitent venir s'installer dans la ville de Bordeaux que l'essor du tourisme. En 2007, donc c'est la classification de Bordeaux au patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO. Et en 2016, il y a également la mise en place de la LGV, ligne à grande vitesse, qui met Bordeaux à 2 heures de Paris. Et ces dernières années, Bordeaux arrive en tête pour la ville d'expatriation pour les cadres parisiens. On arrive donc à un conflit d'usage et une zone tendue avec comment à la fois accueillir des nouveaux Bordelais, leur procurer un logement accessible et en même temps loger les touristes avec un développement exponentiel dû notamment avec le développement des plateformes. C'est bien les plateformes de location saisonnière qui ont vu l'explosion de ce phénomène. Les enjeux. Donc protéger le logement, c'est bien l'impact du surtourisme sur le logement qui motive ici l'intérêt général et qui ont poussé les élus de la ville de Bordeaux et de Bordeaux Métropole à réglementer cette activité. L'idée est bel et bien de trouver un équilibre entre touristes et résidents. On ne veut pas tomber dans le cas d'école, qui est la ville de Barcelone et qui a de l'avance sur la question, où les résidents en sont venus à critiquer finalement les touristes et à s'en prendre aux touristes en raison du sentiment de saturation. L'idée est également de juguler la hausse des prix de l'immobilier. Il y a évidemment des tendances de fond qui font que l'attractivité fait augmenter le prix aussi bien à la location qu'à la vente, mais l'activité de location saisonnière est beaucoup plus lucrative que la location traditionnelle et encourage ici la surchauffe des prix de l'immobilier puisque les investisseurs sont prêts à payer beaucoup plus cher le prix au mètre carré que s'ils effectuaient de la location classique. Enfin, l'idée est de limiter les nuisances au sein des copropriétés, puisque ce sont toujours une typologie de quartiers qui sont ciblés par cette activité saisonnière, d'hyper-centre-ville, et dans certaines copropriétés, vous allez avoir plusieurs appartements dédiés en permanence à cette activité, et évidemment, le rythme d'un touriste n'est pas celui d'un habitant. Donc, qu'est-ce que la ville de Bordeaux a fait ? Très vite, on s'est aperçu que l'attractivité de Bordeaux s'emballait, qu'il fallait réagir vite. L'idée ici est d'adopter une réglementation qui permette d'être applicable rapidement mais intelligemment. Il y a donc eu la mise en place d'un groupe de travail transversal regroupant différentes directions. La direction du tourisme, évidemment, qui est souvent la direction sollicitée par les médias, et sur la problématique ici du conflit d'usage entre les touristes et les résidents. La direction de l'habitat et du logement, puisque c'est bel et bien l'impact sur le logement qui motive la collectivité à intervenir. La direction de l'urbanisme. La direction juridique pour évidemment être en conformité avec les obligations réglementaires. Et la direction des finances, en France, il faut payer une taxe de séjour sur tout séjour d'une personne, sur les nuitées en fait. Et donc la direction des finances est concernée également par cette réglementation. L'aboutissement a donné lieu à 2 délibérations, l'une de la métropole, qui est compétente en matière de changement d'usage. Donc c'est bien la métropole de Bordeaux qui s'est dotée de la compétence réglementaire. Et la ville de Bordeaux a adopté un règlement applicable uniquement sur son territoire. Donc le dispositif dont je vais vous parler ne s'applique que sur le territoire de la ville de Bordeaux, pas sur celui de la métropole. Et la ville de Bordeaux a mis en place un numéro d'enregistrement. Donc pour faire très simple, c'est une fusée à 2 étages. Dès que quelqu'un veut pratiquer la location saisonnière à Bordeaux, il doit s'inscrire auprès de la taxe de séjour, où il reçoit un numéro d'enregistrement, et ce numéro-là est obligatoire sur toutes les annonces diffusées sur la ville de Bordeaux. L'idée, évidemment, c'est d'identifier le marché, de percevoir la taxe de séjour, et de pouvoir, en aval, également contrôler la régularité de cette activité. Voilà. Maintenant, le régime d'autorisation. Donc, il y a le régime d'enregistrement dont je viens de vous parler, ça c'est la première étape. La deuxième étape, c'est un régime d'autorisation, où là, des conditions, la pratique de cette activité est conditionnée par un mécanisme simple et applicable. Pour faire très simple, à Bordeaux, comme à Paris, on ne peut plus louer son logement en saisonnier dès la première nuitée. Voilà. Un logement, on rappelle ici qu'un logement doit être consacré à accueillir un habitant. C'est un principe qu'on a oublié parce qu'il y a une réversibilité très accessible. Qu'est-ce qui ressemble plus à un logement qu'un meublé de tourisme ? Mais dans le droit français, on est bien d'accord, ça viendrait à l'idée de personne d'ouvrir une boulangerie dans un logement. Juridiquement, c'est pareil. La location saisonnière, c'est de l'hôtellerie. Le logement, c'est pour un habitant. On a prévu un seul cas dérogatoire, c'est-à-dire les fondamentaux des plateformes, à savoir la location de sa résidence principale qu'on loue pendant qu'on part en vacances. Voilà. Et ceci est donc autorisé dans la limite de 120 jours par an, uniquement dans ce cas-là. Sinon, si on veut quand même persister dans la location d'un logement, il faut qu'on le transforme en hébergement hôtelier. On a mis en place un système de compensation. Pour faire très simple, c'est du 1 pour 1. Vous avez un logement, vous voulez le passer en hébergement hôtelier, vous le faites disparaître, d'accord ? Vous le passez en hébergement hôtelier. Dans ces cas-là, la ville estime qu'elle subit un préjudice et vous demande de restituer un logement. Ça veut dire trouver un local commercial, bureau, commerce ou autre, que vous passez en logement. c'est du 1 pour 1. C'est très dissuasif, c'est très contraignant, hein, donc concrètement, il faut avoir 2 locaux. Hein. Ça veut dire qu'on supprime le logement qu'on a pour en faire de l'hébergement hôtelier, qu'on achète des bureaux, qu'on transforme en logement. Comme ça, la ville, elle, n'a pas perdu de logement. Donc, la grille d'analyse est très simple. Déjà, est-ce qu'on est propriétaire d'un logement ou pas? Est-ce que c'est ma résidence ou pas? Si c'est ma résidence principale, j'ai le droit de pratiquer la location saisonnière quand je pars en vacances. Sinon, je n'ai qu'une seule option, c'est le louer à un habitant. Ou sinon, je deviens professionnel de l'immobilier hein, et je supprime un logement pour faire de l'hébergement hôtelier et j'en crée un autre. Voilà, je vous ai mis, juste pour information, hein, les deux liens qu'on a mis à disposition des Bordelais pour pouvoir se renseigner sur cette politique. Hein. Donc la taxe de séjour et usage Bordeaux bordeaux-métropole.fr. Les sanctions, c'est prévu par le Code de la construction et de l'habitation. Lorsqu'on ne respecte pas cette nouvelle réglementation, on risque 50 000 € d'amende au civil et 80 000 € d'amende au pénal. Ceci vaut pour chaque local. Voilà. Donc vous êtes propriétaire de 3 logements, vous risquez 3 fois 50 000, 150 000 €. Un premier bilan qui peut vous être utile pour voir l'efficacité de cette réglementation. Au 30 avril 2019, au 30 avril, ça fait 1 an et 1 mois, hein, ça a été mis en place au 1er mars 2018. Donc 1 an après, on estime à peu près à 8 à 10 000 meublés de tourisme proposés à Bordeaux. Ça, c'est toute typologie confondue, hein, aussi bien résidence principale que secondaire. Et on a 2533 hébergeurs inscrits sur la taxe de séjour. On n'en avait que 951 au 1er mars. Là, j'ai eu les derniers chiffres. On est à 2700 au 30 mai. Ce qui veut dire qu'on a un quasi-triplement des inscriptions. Donc pour vous donner une idée, hein, en pourcentage, ça donne au 1er mars 2018 seulement 10% de l'activité qui est déclarée et identifiée par la ville. Au 30 avril, enfin au 30 mai, pardon, ça en fait 30%. Ça veut dire qu'il y a encore 70% du marché qui n'est pas identifié. Concrètement, hein, on est sur la pratique d'une activité opaque. Ça vous donne quand même l'idée du chemin qui reste à parcourir. On a quand même eu 700 cessations d'activité depuis le 1er mars. Concrètement, c'est des gens qui se sont rendus compte qu'ils n'étaient plus dans les règles et ils ont dit très bien, je ferme mon compte, je ne vais plus louer en saisonnier et ils sont revenus sur le marché de la location classique. C'est bel et bien ici l'enjeu pour la ville de récupérer des logements actuellement dédiés à la location saisonnière pour revenir sur le marché de la location classique et accueillir des habitants. On a adressé 40 procès-verbaux représentant 60 logements. Je voulais terminer sur une mise en perspective européenne. Hein, on est bel et bien sur cette politique, dans la redéfinition des rapports entre le monde économique et la sphère politique. Et à ce sujet, donc, Bordeaux fait partie d'un réseau des métropoles européennes concernées par cette problématique. Amsterdam, ici, est chef de file. Cracovie en fait partie, Berlin, Paris, Barcelone. Et l'idée ici est de faire du lobbying à l'échelle européenne pour faire entendre l'enjeu pour les villes de pouvoir appliquer leur réglementation envers les plateformes, voilà, qui sont les premiers acteurs sur l'amplitude de ce phénomène. Je vous remercie.
Merci bien. Merci bien. Okay, we've had quite a journey. Went from Uruguay and then to Bordeaux, and now we go to Dubrovnik. Mr. Frankovic, the floor is yours.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So let's start with the beginning. The quote of George Bernard Shaw once said, "Those who seek paradise on earth should come and see Dubrovnik." So let's start with that video. So that is Dubrovnik. I assume that most of you already knew about Dubrovnik, one of the most famous towns, but one of the towns that really had a problem in the recent past. So this is why I'm going to present to you the program Respect the City that we implemented 2 years ago. The year of 2019 is the year of culture for Dubrovnik. We have many culture anniversaries. This year, 40-year anniversary of UNESCO World Heritage List. 20 years since Dubrovnik was removed from the list of endangered World Heritage List, since, as you all know, Dubrovnik was severely damaged in 1991 due to the war. Also, this year we have anniversary of the 10th inclusion of the festivity of Saint Blaise on the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity, and 600 years that we have the Orlando statue on the main square in Dubrovnik. As well, 70 years of Dubrovnik Summer Festival. So everything was happening for the long time. We had to cherish what we have now. We have to remember what we had in the future, and also in the present history. Just 10 years ago, we had the war issues. Dubrovnik was absolutely completely damaged. And due to that, we organized a special exhibition in UN building where we present exhibition of Dubrovnik, a scarred city that was severely damaged and that was restored in just few years. I think this says everything about the city that has its great success, but also failures. And we do think that this was a great failure of us. Overcrowding, what is it? Is that a failure of management? Can anyone predict that his or her city is going to be overcrowded? Is that predictable or not? That is a question of talks, but it happened to Dubrovnik. I became a mayor in the year of 2017. Now it's going to be 2 years. 7 days after I became a mayor, we were faced with this. Negative media, international media, saying that there is a death of Dubrovnik, the city that's not living anymore, the city that is overcrowded with hundreds and hundreds of tourists walking around. And the citizens, there are no citizens in this crowd. When you come in Dubrovnik, the first thing that you see are the large cruise ships. But are the large cruise ships only problem in this city or in the world cities? No. But they are solution, the easy solution. So what we did first is we approached the world organization of the cruise ships companies called CLIA, and we said, listen guys, we do have a problem. And you can help to us, and you can help yourselves. Because when your guests arrived in Dubrovnik, they see a mass tourism, over-tourism. Could they enjoy in the churches, in the museums, in the wide Dubrovnik streets? No. What is their experience of Dubrovnik? Bad. Are they going to come back in Dubrovnik as a tourist that want to stay in the hotels, apartments, hostels? No. No one wants to come in overcrowded destination. So we suggest to them, let's to be partners in this story. So we implemented the program that is called Respect the City. And the Respect the City means not just for the tourists to respect the city, for the locals to respect its own city as well. To all of those that are making money in Dubrovnik to respect the city as well. Because when you are taking a hard decisions, and to cut the number of cruise ship passengers is a hard decision. To cut the number of daily visitors is a hard decision. Why is that so? It seems so easy, but it affects all those economies that are currently making money in the city. That's why it's not easy, because everyone would do it in a minute. So what we did to protect our city? Protecting and respecting the heritage start with us, the political and business leaders, the locals, and then the tourist industry and the travelers. So all of us know the goals. All of us actually know what to do it. But we just need to dare and to do it. It's not that hard. So what Dubrovnik City did is the tourism development strategy, as well as the provision concerning the cruise industry in the city of Dubrovnik, have been prepared and adopted by the City Council. Better coordination and distribution of the passenger embarkation and disembarkation time with the CLIA jointly as the partners. And one-day trip organizers have been instructed to avoid organizing their trips on Thursdays and Saturdays, since those days are the most busy days in Dubrovnik. So we make a lot of new city acts. We freed the spaces in Dubrovnik. How did we do it? We cut the number of tables and chairs in the old city of Dubrovnik. We opened and widened our streets for the tourists to freely come in the city, to enjoy in the city. We do not want that our city is recognized as over-tourist city and as a city with just the restaurants and chairs inside of it. So with the Respect the City, we did want to send a message to the world. We did want to send a message that we are ready to change things and that Dubrovnik is not going to be in the future times overcrowded destination. We implemented many of the new rules to the citizens and to the tourists. We do believe that all of those that are coming to the city of Dubrovnik are ready to apply with the rules, but they need to know what are the rules in order to apply to the rules. So we communicate directly with them what are the exact rules of the city of Dubrovnik. So when someone is coming to Dubrovnik, there are different varieties how you will communicate with the tourists. What is crucial is to keep them informed, to give them information what is the best time to come in Dubrovnik. Is that the morning hours, afternoon hours, or maybe midnight hours? So we have different applications, Dubrovnik Card and Dubrovnik Eye. With that, we can, if someone is downloading that, we can directly communicate with our tourists what is the best time to come to the city. And also what we have on our web page is Dubrovnik Visitor. What is that? That is a prediction of the number of tourists in destination in a certain day. So if you go today in Dubrovnik Visitor web page, you can directly see what is the prediction, let's say in month or two designated day. Is there going to be a lot of tourists, lower number of tourists? What is the actual prediction? And then you can plan your visit to the city of Dubrovnik. For the 2019 and for the 2020, we again complied with the new rules of managing the city, managing the arrivals of cruise ships in Dubrovnik, and managing departure of the cruise ships in Dubrovnik. And the year of 2018 was the first year, after so many years, that we didn't have rushes in the city. First year that people could really enjoy in the city of Dubrovnik. So it is very important for all of us that when we are running our cities need to develop the infrastructure for the tourists. Dubrovnik is a city of 42,000 inhabitants. And in the summertime, that number of tourists doubles with the number of inhabitants. So the sewage system, the water system, the roads, everything need to comply to the city of 80,000 inhabitants, because Dubrovnik for 8 months is a city of 80,000 inhabitants. Over-tourism can be avoided by a proper management, and that is the only way how to do it. But as a conclusion, what is very important for the nowadays mayors, it's not to not calculate, to not think about the next mandate. Because if you start to think in that way, then our cities are going to lose on long-term sustainable management. The actions need to be taken now. We are going to lose some votes, but our cities will gain their future. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. That was very interesting. I just can't help myself. This is such an interesting panel, such an interesting topic. I just want to take a few moments to ask some questions of our panelists while we have them here on stage before we let them go. I have to say, the first thing we have to direct towards our introductory speaker, over-tourism. I've had this thing for a while. I think it's the wrong word. We had this discussion the other day. Are you with me? I say we should call it unbalanced tourism, because that's what it is. It's not too many tourists everywhere. It's more bottlenecks around the area, and we can balance it with action. You agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree.
Okay.
Not saying it's the best term, but I don't know any better ones at the moment. But we'll get to it. But it's already a lot better than over-tourism.
You prefer unbalanced tourism then? It's over. Okay. So that's first. Second question I have for you is this. One of the things, and I totally agree with you, that cities are getting more crowded. There are more commuters coming in and out. There are more crowds in areas that are local crowds. When I come to New York or another city and it's bustling and it's rush hour, I want to feel that vibe of New York. If I come to a rock concert, I want to feel a lot of people around me. If it's New Year's Eve, I want to feel a lot of people on the street that are locals. It's different when there's tourists everywhere, don't you think? I mean, there's one that makes the city feel alive with local people going about their daily lives, and if you're a visitor, you get to kind of be part of that. That's a natural crowd. You have this unnatural crowd of tourism, but I didn't hear you differentiating those things.
It's very, well, I mean, there's a, how do you call it? It's a gliding scale, because like, yes, residents are residents, commuters are commuters, then you have the people who live 20 miles from where you live, from where the city is. You have people from the same country who are quite close culturally, and you wouldn't recognize them, come within the same continent. Okay, we're getting there. And then you have people who really stand out in groups and within. So it really depends, I think, on the type of visitor, how much is too much. I think you can have plenty more residents, and you want residents because you want a bustling vibe. But a limited number of visitors also gives that vibe. So it's very difficult to say, like, to make that strict comparison resident visitor. But I agree, like, you want a bustling vibe, and you want people who know their way around. And when people basically start stopping in the middle of the road, that's when it gets difficult.
Some visitors fit in. You can't tell if they're a tourist or not, which is one of the reasons that a tour group that looks very much like tourists has a bigger, almost like a multiplier effect of making the locals feel like they're in a zoo or in some kind of Disneyland experience.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Counterbalance is, if they're in a group, it's very easy to manage because they're visible and you can manage it. And more independent tourists are just, particularly with the short-term rental services,
Right.
it's very difficult to see when they are, where, how, what, why, because Airbnb and the likes just don't share their data very much.
Okay.
So it's always it's so complicated. There's so much interest.
And then I have to get real quickly, 50,000 euros, 80,000 euros, how do you collect the money? There's a lot of fines we're talking about for Airbnb fines, I believe.
Well,
renting illegally when it's not your turn to rent and you don't have permission. Have you been successful in collecting that kind of money from people?
Well, so far it's ongoing because basically the city is just acting that there is an infraction, and then it goes to the judge, and then it is the judge saying, okay, this is 20,000, 30,000, and now we're waiting for the first judgments, since right now there is a question to the European Union, and no French judge will
go against
take a decision until the European Law Court says
And
how.
when are we expecting a decision on that?
At the end of the year 2019.
Okay. And then you'll collect your first $80,000
Well-
euro penalty.
We'll
Okay.
see.
We hope.
But,
we hope.
Yes, we
But
hope.
it's a
But
great-
Paris is having the same regulation, and I don't have the figures, but it did work out, and they are every year since several years now collecting some judgments.
Yeah, and Barcelona, I know, is doing something similar as well.
Yes.
I have to ask, Mr. Mayor, in Dubrovnik, I heard like a year or two ago, something about 10,000 visitors at once inside the old city walls. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, it is correct. We used to have 10,000 and more. We had around 6 to 10 cruise ships at the same time in Dubrovnik. Now we have a capitation, and you do not have more than 2 cruise ships in the same time.
But did you have a limit? Wasn't there like a physical limit? You said we are not going to allow more than 10,000 people inside the old city at one moment.
Yes, but you have to understand Dubrovnik history. We were always open town to everyone, so we do not want to put offenses. This is not a tourism. So it's better to speak with the stakeholders, such as cruise ship companies, travel agencies, and we do have a problem. Airbnb is a problem worldwide because they do not adapt with regulations of the cities and the countries, and this is a problem. When they start adapting to the regulations, the things, even with Airbnb and similar providers, will be more easier.
Okay, one more quick question, yes or no? Do you think cruise ships need beautiful ports of call, like your city, more, or do your city need cruise ships more?
We do need each other mutually, because I can tell you the recent history of Dubrovnik, because I lived through it. I'm coming from the tourism business, and actually I started with my career in the year of 99, 2000, when Dubrovnik tourism just started to rise, because we had a war in 1990s. We were waiting for the cruise ships with the marching bands. So we that desperately needed the tourists, because our economy, 80% of our economy is based on tourism. So we do need each other mutually, but we need to respect each other, and then we wouldn't have a problem at all.
Nice. I learned my lesson. You don't ask a politician a yes or no question. Can we do? Thank you for your time, everyone. Let's give a round of applause, everybody. Thank you. So that concludes our second session. We have session 3. Before we go to session 3, I have a little riddle for you. When does the Secretary General get to speak? And the answer, of course, is whenever he wants. And he asked to have a quick housekeeping notes for you now, or he'll be juggling cats. We'll see. I'm excited as you are to find out. Please, the stage is yours, Mr. Secretary General.
Okay, good morning, everybody. That will be very fast. Good news and bad news. Let's start with the bad news. The bad news is that we had, everybody knew because it's in the bylaws, till 5:30, 1 hour before the opening ceremony of yesterday, to present your candidacy. So some cities interested in running for either the board or 2021 are coming to say that they would like to run. Even though I studied law, I don't want to be legalist, but Article 44 of the bylaws are very clear, and we have to respect them. It's 1 hour prior. So I can no longer accept candidacies. The good news, we have 16 cities running for the board, and as you know, we have 8 positions on the board. Never in the past did we have so many, and I think this is very positive. It shows the growth and the interest in the organization. And we have 3 cities running to host the 2021 World Congress. Most of you are familiar with the way it works because you've been with us for many years, how the electoral process works. Nonetheless, any candidate interested in finding more, my office is right behind the registration desk, so do not hesitate. Come and see me so that you can be sure. Some of you already know you don't have to come. This is not an obligation, but if you feel like coming, you're most welcome to review the electoral process that we have had for so many years. What is important for both voters and candidates is tomorrow morning to be here sharp at 9 o'clock. Because as I said, we have so many candidates that we will have a problem in terms of time. And I will be explaining tomorrow how it works to everybody. But for both the candidates and the voters, why for the candidates? It is a draw, as you know. And the first city that will come up at 9 o'clock for a 5-minute speech. And according to the way we work, if that city is not here at 9 o'clock, they remain a candidate. We do not kick them out as candidate, but they lose their 5-minute speech. So 9 o'clock, is important to be there right on time. And for the voters, of course, let's be polite. We most appreciate all of the candidates, and let's be polite and be here at 9 o'clock so that we hear all of the speeches of all of the candidates. And now, let's go back to substance. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, for those who are getting hungry, we got about 45 minutes left, roughly, till we get to lunch. And we're going to get on to session number 3, which, as you know from your program, is sustainable tourism. We're going to go right ahead. You know the format. We're going to bring up our contestants on stage, let them get comfortable, and then we'll announce introduce the introductory speaker. So from Spain, Aranjuez, we have Maria del Pozo Lopez. Please join us on stage. We have, now, I've been practicing this. My pronunciation is way off. Zamosz from Poland. Zamosz. We have, and then I have to the name. Boguslav Smigan. There we go. Thank you for the names. I'm sorry about this. And then we have from Visby, Sweden. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I live in Sweden. I live in Stockholm. Visby is near and dear to my heart. We have 2 people representing Visby, Helene Neguise and Monica Frisk. Please also take the stage. Varsågod. And now, I'm going to introduce our kickoff star for this session. Jyoti, that's as I'm familiar with, and again, another last name I'm having trouble with is Hograshat. I hope I got that right. Please come up. This is the Deputy Director for the World Heritage Center at UNESCO. If you've had a chance in your program to look at her biography, chances are you're still probably reading it because it goes on and on and on with one of the most impressive list of degrees and accomplishments that I've ever seen. From architecture to urban planning, initiatives on cultural heritage. We are so fortunate to have with us one of the world's foremost experts today. Please join me for a warm welcome. Jyoti Wari, come on up. Here he is.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Well, I'm very happy to be back here today. And today I'll be talking a bit about, I'm going to be talking about sustainable tourism and the historic urban landscape. I can progress it myself here. That's very good. So when we think about World Heritage, we think about perhaps dreamy places that we can go to. the idealized history that we can visit. But what does it really mean to be in World Heritage Places? For more than 3,800 years, the Great Pyramids of Giza were the tallest man-made structures in the world. But today, travelers bemoan that the Giza pyramids can be seen from Pizza Huts that are around it, and that there is chaos and noise that's around of the city around. The reality of tourism, then, is what is starting to take over, and this is what we're seeing in many places. And I'm not going to name all of these places that you're all very familiar with. This is Venice. It could be other cities, but this is Venice. What I want to, and of course, you see that this is creeping in other places as well. What I want to mention here is that the Taj Mahal, for instance, brings 20% of the tourist revenues to the state of Uttar Pradesh, where it's located. And Uttar Pradesh has many, many other very important historic areas, but 20% of the state's revenue from tourism comes from the Taj Mahal. In order to curb the tourism levels, the state has tried many things, including at times there was even an attempt by some officials to drop the Taj Mahal from being mentioned within the souvenir books in an effort to curb tourism, so that by not mentioning the Taj Mahal, perhaps some tourists might be discouraged from visiting it. But I think it's important to recall here what really we are talking about in terms of heritage, and what is it that it means to be World Heritage. Heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today, and what we pass on to future generations. Our cultural and natural heritage are irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration, and they are our touchstones, our points of reference, our identity. And what makes the concept of World Heritage exceptional is its universal application. World Heritage sites belong to all the people of the world, irrespective of the territory in which they are located. This becomes very interesting, particularly when we start to look at how the management of the properties are taken forward, because it is, of course, something that the cities, sites, the site managers, the cities are responsible for, the local communities are impacted by, but they're also something that the global community, as we saw in the case of Notre Dame, for instance, very recently, are very, very mobilized by. And this is important to always remember, because sometimes cities or sites are surprised by why the rest of the world is so worried about exactly what is happening on the site. So what does it really mean when we talk about outstanding universal value? We've seen this mentioned many times, and many of you who are managing World Heritage cities are very, very cognizant of this, the real meaning of outstanding universal value. But just to recall it, what is it, as others before me today have mentioned, what is it about heritage that we are protecting? World Heritage sites are identified for an outstanding universal value, which that could be cultural or that might have cultural or natural significance, which is so exceptional as to transcend national boundaries and to be of common importance for present and future generations of all humanity. And as such, the permanent protection of this heritage is of the highest importance to the national community as a whole. The committee, the World Heritage Committee, defines various criteria for the inscription of the properties on the World Heritage List. So these are the criteria, and the OUV is what we have to protect. And that's what gives the real definition of what is important about that property. Now, every property also has a property boundary. And this is particularly important in a city because sometimes these boundaries, when you have a monument, you might have sort of fencing around it. Not that that is a recommended way necessarily at all, but there might be ways to demarcate what that monument is. But in the case of a city, very often these boundaries are not very well identified. And local people might not realize where the boundaries are. And we certainly find that when we go to visit a city, a historic city, a World Heritage city, whether a particular structure is inside the property or outside the property is often not very clear to the many of the people involved. Now, why does this matter? This matters a lot because the way the World Heritage property and the OUV is maintained, the OUV is really within the boundaries of the property. Outside the boundaries is another area, which is the buffer zone. And the buffer zone you might think of as an additional layer of protection for the OUV. So and there could be other elements that could come up outside of the buffer zone that could impact the OUV of the property, but in general, that becomes less and less. So if you have suddenly a very horizontal city and a very tall structure that comes up outside of the buffer zone, that could still have a visual impact on the OUV. So this is a very important aspect to keep in mind, because where the new constructions happen, where the infrastructure for tourism is developed, what the OUV is and how that is maintained is the fundamental sort of aspect of a historic city that is important for tourism, because this is what you want to be, this is why tourists are coming to see the city, and this is what you want to be presenting to the tourists. So you can have OUV of a variety of, it's not that, this is not, World Heritage is not a beauty contest. So they're not all, these sites are not here because they're beautiful sites. Certainly many of them are indeed very beautiful sites. But as you know very well, there are a number of sites here, sites on the World Heritage list that are sometimes deeply disturbing in their history, that they are commemorating. Their OUV lie in the difficult histories that we have. And this is also an aspect that that I will talk about a little bit more going forward. But as I said, being able to see that variety and being able to identify that OUV and present it to the visitors to the site, and making sure that that OUV is enhanced and not diminished in whatever types of development, presentation, tourism management that happens, is a very critical element. Now, in relation to this, I want to bring up the historic urban landscape recommendation, which some people have talked about today, and I had mentioned also in my speech yesterday, which is a recommendation that was agreed upon by all the member states of UNESCO, which is 193 member states. The recommendation was adopted in 2011 by the General Conference of UNESCO. The idea was that it's a holistic approach to integrating the goals of urban heritage conservation with sustainable urban development, of socioeconomic development, and it sees the idea of heritage as something that could be valuable, a valuable resource for social and economic development of cities. So it means that it's really a way by which contemporary needs of socioeconomic development can be balanced with heritage conservation, how they can be integrated together. So some of the points that were being raised this morning, for example, where Liverpool, there was a very, Mr. Fleming was talking about the idea of the mayors and the people of Liverpool saying that there's no, we need jobs and we need to maintain heritage. Well, these are not in conflict with each other. The whole idea is to be able to find solutions that work together. And that's what the historic landscape approach is about. So it's an additional tool to integrate policies and practices of conservation of the built environment to the wider goals of urban development in respect of the inherited values and traditions in different cultural contexts. So you could talk about it as a sort of a soft law. You know, convention is an obligation once the country ratifies it. A recommendation is a soft law to be implemented by the member states on a voluntary basis. So the idea of the historic urban landscape is that there is layering within the city, where, depending on how long the history of that city has been, it could go back to several thousand years of continuous habitation, and you might find layers. And the layers might be those that are buried underneath and therefore are then put up, made visible, or they could be layers in the different periods of buildings that you see along the same street. You know, there might be, and that is telling the story of the city. Sometimes cities feel, many sites feel that they want to fix the identity of a city or a place or a site to have a very coherent single identity of a particular period. Now that's actually contrary to the idea that we want to be able to show the layers of history, and that richness is really what, and sometimes there are unpleasant histories that are part of it, but that's part of the story of the city, how one overcomes some of these unpleasant histories or deals with it. There's also the geographical setting. So if it's by a water, by a mountainside, at the bottom of a mountain, in a valley, these are many cities that are located in a kind of a bowl. These particularities of the geography are very important to the identity of that city. And that's what it means by a larger setting. It doesn't mean that you put larger and larger boundaries. Sometimes people talk about the historic urban landscape as a place, a type of, it's a landscape. No, it's really an approach. It's a way of looking at a city in its larger setting, understanding its many layers. So it's a complex way of looking at a city, because cities are complex animals. They, as you all know, as you manage cities, that they are very complicated. So that's really what this is about. So how can we connect this idea of looking at the organization of the city, the spatial organization, the land use patterns, the hydrology, the morphology, the social cultural practices and values? How can we connect this with tourism, as we've been talking, with sustainable tourism? Well, just to sort of give you very quickly a few points. First of all, one can start by looking at heritage as being at the heart of urban development. So considering heritage at the heart of development, urban development, means that you're looking at not just buildings as monuments separately. You're looking at it as something that can be seen all together, and that the management plans, which every World Heritage Site is required to make, prepare over a period of time and adopt, is integrated with the urban development plan. Very often, these are two completely separate documents then prepared by completely separate groups of people who've never talked to each other, never sat around a table together. And that's really critical, that they do sit around a table together, and we bring them to sit together, and that the tourism development happens with the urban management plan, with the heritage management plan. So considering, I'm running through this quickly, I think my timing went off already. So considering the site in its largest setting, in its natural geography, taking pride in the layers of history over time, which I already talked about, prioritizing local communities, local jobs, and small businesses, include tourism in the overall development plan, prioritizing visual integrity and identity, which I talked about, if it's a horizontal city, if it has certain type of skyline, being able to figure out this identity, improving the infrastructure and housing for the local people. So it's being able to balance this kind of a global OUV with the very local needs and aspirations. Improving public spaces, maximizing experience. Maximizing pedestrian opportunities, so looking at mobility. The number of cities that run into problems because of mobility is very large. We see a lot of problems around metro lines that are going too close to certain important sites. We have the cable cars. We have all sorts of different things that we see. intangible cultural heritage elements, several of you have talked about today, and I think that's very critical also in being able to make meaningful spaces, meaningful sites. And ensuring inclusive and participatory processes. This is very critical. I'm going to skip over some of these slides now. You can look at this book, which is on our website, the whole guidebook, which is a slim guidebook that you can find on our website. And Bordeaux, we already heard about today, so I'm going to skip over. And Cracow also was part of our discussion earlier this morning, so I'm going to skip over. And I just want to show you the tourist reality a little bit more, to say why planning needs to happen together with heritage management, so that once we decide that this is the OUV, you don't end up putting tourist buses at the very entrance when the most important views are completely masked by either unplanned urban development or tourist buses or hotels that disrupt the skyline. Views of the ocean, the bay. This is Georgetown, or this is in Macau, and the heights of buildings, the control over the heights of buildings, so that what is really valuable in the heritage site, the heritage city, needs to always be kept at the forefront of the planning, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. This is again the Taj Mahal. I'm showing you views that are not the standard views that you would see in picture postcards, but in fact these are the views that you would see if you went to the site, because that's what's happening all around. These places are sitting in the heart of urban areas. And this is Lijiang, which can also, making a historic city into a theme park or something that's very, very perfect, sometimes too perfect, fixed in time, is also not a real story. So it's being able to keep the OUV, the authenticity of the city, and maintaining its OUV. This is the Jamal Fna in Marrakesh, in Morocco, which is completely alive with all sorts of intangible cultural heritage. Cordoba in Spain, which has these festivals of flowers, which is a very important intangible heritage element that gives it a great deal of life. And the meaning that building has for people. This is in Mali, where after the tombs were demolished, this is the rebuilding that is happening in Mali, and the local people are very much involved in the rebuilding, and so their participation was critical. And the idea that you cannot really have meaningful places and experiences unless people do what is meaningful for them, the local people, because if it's meaningful for the local communities, then it's meaningful and rich for the visitors. So you can't create a theme park only for the visitors. It has to be real for the local people for it to be rich and meaningful for others. So developing and managing access then is part of this. I just want to leave you with the website of our World Heritage Cities program. That is one of the 6 thematic programs that you can find on the World Heritage Center website. And you can also find this manual on New Life for Historic Cities that is also on the World Heritage Center website, and point you to the new urban agenda for sustainable development. I briefly mentioned the goal 11 of the 2030 agenda. The new urban agenda was adopted also by all countries and is an obligation for all cities. And so being able to look at how heritage can contribute to the new urban agenda and help achieve the 2030 goals with heritage rather than against it by demolishing it, I think is very critical, because heritage, cultural heritage can be a transversal resource for achieving not only the conservation of heritage, but for decent jobs, for youth empowerment, for gender equality across the board. So with that, I'm going to stop and listen to some of the cities and their experiences and their approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Jody. Thank you. Please have a seat and join us. I really hope we can get to some discussion afterwards, because I had so many questions while you were speaking. But let's move on to Spain. Aranjuez, a beautiful city. Please, I'd love to listen to the presentation.
Buenos días a todos. Voy a hacer mi presentación en español porque muchos de los presentes hablan castellano, hablan español y, sin embargo, mi presentación está en inglés para aquellos que no entienden español y así pues creo que podré llegar a la mayor parte de la audiencia de esta manera. Voy a tomar unos segundos para agradecer a la ciudad de Cracovia y a los organizadores de este congreso, también en la Organización de Ciudades Patrimonio Mundial, por la invitación que ofrecen a la ciudad de Aranjuez para presentar la participación de Aranjuez en el proyecto World Heritage Journeys, una iniciativa del Centro del Patrimonio Mundial que ha sido financiada por la Comisión Europea y que fue votada en el Parlamento Europeo para conseguir esta financiación. Es importante remarcar esto, puesto que, por tanto, se constituye en un gran proyecto europeo que ha conseguido el apoyo del Parlamento Europeo para su consecución. La inclusión de Aranjuez en este proyecto de World Heritage Journeys of the European Union, en el marco de Royal Sites, es decir, de sitios reales, ha supuesto una oportunidad única para que Aranjuez, el paisaje cultural de Aranjuez, tenga ocasión de compartir experiencias y participar proactivamente en esta iniciativa experimental y puntera sobre el turismo sostenible de la mano del Centro del Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO y también de National Geographic, porque gracias a esa financiación que comentaba previamente hemos podido contar con la colaboración de esta entidad de gran prestigio mundial también en el desarrollo de todo el proyecto. La participación de Aranjuez en este proyecto de World Heritage Journeys cumple a la perfección con el objetivo de sumar sinergias junto con otros sitios reales europeos para promocionar sitios patrimonio mundial menos conocidos, como es nuestro caso, aliviando la sobrecarga de visitantes de algunos sitios reales europeos, por ejemplo, Versalles, para desviar la demanda del turismo cultural hacia destinos menos desgastados y para promocionar sitios patrimonio mundial europeos menos conocidos, apoyando así el crecimiento sostenible de turismo dentro de este marco europeo en el que nos encontramos. Nuestro trabajo, bien, esta es la web del proyecto, de la que hablaremos un poco más a fondo más adelante. Nuestro trabajo a nivel local, que es de lo que yo voy a hablar en particular, se inicia en 2017 con la participación en varios talleres de trabajo, uno de los cuales fue celebrado en Aranjuez, con el apoyo del Ministerio de Cultura de España y también la Dirección General de Turismo y Patrimonio Nacional, la Dirección General de Turismo de la Comunidad de Madrid y de Patrimonio Nacional. Aranjuez para Aranjuez esta celebración de este taller fue realmente un hito importante, dado que es una ciudad pequeña de unos 60.000 habitantes. El hecho de ser la sede de un taller en el que representantes del Centro del Patrimonio Mundial, National Geographic y también los expertos de 9 sitios patrimonio mundial, sitios reales patrimonio mundial europeo, se reunieran para empezar a debatir sobre esta nueva plataforma de turismo sostenible y empezar a desarrollarla, fue un gran acontecimiento. Realmente fue algo de gran importancia y que además tuvo su reflejo posteriormente en las redes sociales, no solo locales, sino también a nivel regional, nacional y europeo, de la mano de la propia web de los World Heritage Journeys. Ahí, como podéis ver, tenemos en el Palacio Real de Aranjuez tuvo lugar esa primera reunión y también eso dio pie a que el trabajo local que debíamos desarrollar tuviera más empaque, puesto que ya habíamos tenido el respaldo de las grandes instituciones que andaban detrás de este proyecto, del desarrollo de este proyecto, y, por tanto, esta iniciativa a nivel local tuvo ese empuje con esa celebración previa de este taller en Aranjuez. En Aranjuez lo que hicimos fue intentar contar con los actores del turismo local y regional para que se unieran a nosotros a la hora de desarrollar los contenidos del proyecto, en los que participaron muy directamente, y también para que ellos diseñaran específicamente para formar parte de este proyecto una serie de productos turísticos adaptados a los destinatarios que este proyecto tenía. He de decir que esta iniciativa nace también en el marco de la celebración del año 2018 como Año del Turismo Europa-China y que, por tanto, esta web que iba a ser traducida, o que fue traducida, de hecho, al chino, iba a tener también un alcance internacional que para sitios como Aranjuez, siendo relativamente pequeño, era inalcanzable por sí solo. Con lo cual, la dimensión y la sinergia que surgía en tanto a comunicación y difusión de nuestro sitio Patrimonio Mundial por nuestra participación en el proyecto era realmente enorme. Y no solo fue por el proyecto en sí mismo, sino también porque propició la participación de Aranjuez en una iniciativa que dentro de esta celebración del año 2018, Turismo Europa-China, promovió la European Travel Commission, que fue la celebración o la iniciativa Light Bridge, que consistió en iluminar de rojo en Europa, rojo, digamos, haciendo una referencia al país asiático, a China. Iluminar de rojo, como digo, varios edificios emblemáticos de diferentes ciudades de Europa y, a su vez, en China se iluminaron de azul varios edificios emblemáticos, tendiendo una mano también a Europa. Ese fue un intercambio en el que Aranjuez participó y, de nuevo, nos dio en el ámbito de la comunicación y de la difusión un alcance que difícilmente, de manera individual, una ciudad como Aranjuez, un sitio real, un paisaje cultural como Aranjuez, hubiera tenido si no fuera porque participaba en este proyecto. Bueno, finalmente se creó una página web con varios itinerarios, sitios reales, Europa antigua, Europa romántica y Europa subterránea. Aranjuez, lógicamente, está en la de sitios reales y se ha trabajado con los agentes locales para facilitarles una serie de herramientas que, a través de la web, podrían propiciar la difusión de todos los productos turísticos específicamente creados en el marco de este proyecto. Y siguiendo un marketing plan, del que ahora vamos a ver un pequeño resumen, y sus consecuentes acciones dentro del ámbito local. Vamos a hacer una vista rápida sobre en qué consiste esta página web. Para quien quiera visitarla es www.visitworldheritage.org. Pero rápidamente, para que veáis en el caso de Aranjuez en qué consiste, hay una parte de repaso de en qué consiste el sitio Patrimonio Mundial, hay una parte de vistas y atracciones recomendadas por la gente local, porque si algo caracteriza a esta web es que está construida desde el ámbito local y, por tanto, sois la gente del sitio quien recomienda a los visitantes qué hacer, qué visitar, dónde comer, dónde hospedarse, qué actividades realizar en el sitio Patrimonio Mundial. Experiencias, como veis aquí, desde gastronómicas, vuelo en globo y otro tipo de actividades en el marco del sitio. También leyendas, aquellas historias propias de cada sitio que tanto nos gusta conocer a los visitantes y a las que muchas veces no tenemos acceso. Y ahora sí que voy directamente a esta parte del marketing plan que se implementó desde el propio proyecto de los World Heritage Journeys y que nosotros hicimos también en el ámbito local nuestras propias acciones en correspondencia con las que se nos marcaban desde el propio proyecto, como por ejemplo proveer contenidos para la web, diseñar fue una oferta turística específica para presentarla en esta web, tratar de involucrar lo más posible a los agentes, a los actores locales en el marco del turismo para que su participación fuera lo más proactiva posible. Hemos creado un calendario de eventos locales de mayor significancia para poderlos publicar también en la web. Hemos apoyado la campaña del proyecto, pero también en el ámbito local, es decir, en las redes sociales. Y estamos a la espera de saber si vamos a ser receptores de un fan trip que posiblemente se celebrará este otoño también, reuniendo diferentes destinos de este proyecto. He de decir que el proyecto ha reunido entre los 4 itinerarios a 34 sitios Patrimonio Mundial de los más de 600 que hay en Europa y que en España contamos con 2, que es Aranjuez y Tarragona. Bien, rápidamente y como conclusiones diré, ya para mostraros un poco cuál ha sido la ventaja, el valor añadido que el proyecto ha podido proporcionar a nuestra ciudad, os diré que el programa nos ha permitido, sobre todo, compartir experiencias con otros agentes turísticos de otros sitios. Y siempre el intercambio de experiencias, como sabéis, como sabemos todos aquí, es bastante fructífero. Además, este proyecto nos ha abierto fronteras a un sitio como Aranjuez, especialmente en términos de comunicación y difusión, como ya os comentaba antes. Esta foto que veis aquí es una foto en el Centro del Patrimonio Mundial en una sesión de alto nivel que tuvo lugar en septiembre del año pasado, en octubre del año pasado, en la que se reunieron tanto agentes de relevancia dentro del ámbito del turismo chinos como europeos, y ahí pudimos estar presentes. También la creación de una red con diferentes sitios patrimonio mundial, a largo plazo, perdón, con diferentes sitios patrimonio mundial para poder generar conjuntamente estrategias de turismo sostenible para el futuro. Y ahora os voy a contar al final en qué ha consistido nuestra participación específicamente en esas estrategias. Y, por último, pero no menos importante, yo creo que a nivel local ha significado el ponernos encima de la mesa el reto de reflexionar sobre cuáles son las expectativas y las necesidades del visitante del siglo XXI. Ha creado una sinergia de trabajo a nivel local que no existía antes y, por tanto, ha también creado la necesidad de indagar sobre la creación y el diseño de nuevos productos de turismo relacionado con el patrimonio más atractivos y, digamos, con un efecto llamada hacia ese tipo de turismo que hasta ahora no se había tenido tanto en cuenta. Hablaba antes sobre estas estrategias de turismo sostenible. Bien, pues en concreto, cuando hablamos de sostenibilidad, yo creo que además de hablar de ese ámbito económico, social y medioambiental que la sostenibilidad lleva inherente en su significado, también tenemos que hablar de sostenibilidad en el tiempo. Y en ese sentido, Aranjuez, pensando en esta sostenibilidad en el tiempo, en sacar partido de nuestra participación en este proyecto, estamos ahora participando en el Comité de Turismo Sostenible que se ha creado también en el marco de este proyecto y estamos testando una herramienta de evaluación de turismo sostenible en el sitio de la que esperamos aprender mucho y sacar bueno, un gran partido y grandes conclusiones. Nada más. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias María del Pozo. López, muchas gracias por eso. Okay. Next we have, I wanted to just say before we come on up to the podium, come on up. I just want to say that you're the head of the Cultural Landscape Foundation, correct? Sorry? Cultural Landscape Foundation. And now we are honored to have this gentleman right here, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture and Civil Engineering at Ljubljana University of Technology. It is a great honor. The floor is yours, sir.
Dear colleagues, I represent ICOMOS Poland team, and we elaborated a model of the management plan for the World Heritage Properties, and we also implemented that model in Zamość, and therefore the title of the presentation is as you see. Dear colleagues, in every historic city there are many partners who have different needs, problems, interests, and goals. These partners are connected by the fact that they operate in the common historic area, so they should be called the stakeholders. However, these stakeholders represent interests, needs, and goals that are not consistent. For example, heritage restorers in a historic city want to keep as much historic elements and values as possible. That is, the restorers want to preserve the authenticity and integrity of the entire old city. Therefore, the restorer's goal is to limit as much as possible contemporary transformations and investments. But on the other hand, the managers of a historic city want to create the best condition for its users, especially for residents and tourists. This requires adapting historical objects and urban space to contemporary functions and standards. So it must be clearly stated that the needs and goals of the stakeholders groups are contradictory in many aspects. The only solution to this conflict of interest is to build a compromise. However, building a compromise in such difficult condition is not easy. It requires two elements: framework program, theoretical assumption that will define the principles and limits for the compromise being built, and the second element, tools that are working, that on the working level will determine how this compromise will be reached and implemented. These two elements, so for the historic cities, such a program has been formulated in the whole recommendation, while the management plan should be the tool. These two elements were used in Zamość, and I would like to present some aspects of this activity, but starting with the UNESCO whole recommendation. The whole recommendation is a doctrinal text adopted by UNESCO. The whole recommendation defines the way in which the heritage and its protection should be considered in the context of other tasks and processes in the historical city. Recommendation states that the heritage protection is only one of the factors which should be taken into account in the historical city. And therefore, the planning process should take into consideration also development of the city, and as a consequence, the heritage protection becomes not final goal, but the means which leads to sustainable development of the historical city, and also professionals should determine the heritage values together with local communities. All these ideas relate to the way in which heritage should be considered. To fully evaluate the new program of whole recommendation, it can be compared to the previous recommendation concerning historical cities adopted by UNESCO in 1976. Here I collected the most important aspects. So the first point is the subject. Previously, we had only a historical city. Nowadays, we have much broader notion, historical urban landscape. The second point, the subject of the analysis. Also, in the previous attitude, that was also heritage and monuments. Nowadays, we have all elements we could see in the historic city. The attitude toward the changes, very important aspect. Firstly, the attitude toward the changes was negative. Nowadays, we accept changes. The supreme aim of the activities undertaken in historical city, only protection of the heritage values. Nowadays, we don't have supreme aim. The way to determine the aims and the values, previously only specialists, now specialists with the public consultations, and the aim of the actions, previously only protection, now protection and all other purposes and aims. So summing up, one can say that the HAL recommendation presents the holistic, integrated perception of heritage in the historical city, and that the protection of heritage is only one of the tasks which should be carried out in a historical city. The second element is the management plan. The principles formulated in the HAL recommendation guide the management of historical city. They create the area for seeking a compromise by the stakeholders. In practice, this means that all the most important goals, protection, residents' needs, development of tourism, should be analyzed and solved through the cooperation with stakeholders. Therefore, at the operational level, a tool is needed that comprehensively covers the needs, goals, and interests of all stakeholders. The management plan with an appropriate structure is such a tool. The ICOMOS Poland, based on the whole recommendation philosophy and the requirements set out in the World Heritage Properties, developed the management plan model. It is as follows. You see, we have 3 points or chapters in that structure: characteristic of the World Heritage Sites, characteristic of the system of the protection, and characteristic of use of the place. This structure shows that the protection of the site, the points number 2, and its modern use, the points number 3, are treated equally. It should be also added that in this structure, a specially dedicated model for assessing values is used, also developed by our team. Based on this structure, the management plans have been prepared for several historic properties, and it is necessary to add that the preparation of the management plan is obligatory condition for the candidates on the World Heritage List. So the last point, the tourism in the management plan of Zamość. This model became the basis for the development of the management plan for Zamość, which is, of course, on the World Heritage List. The management plan was developed at the request of the City Council, which wanted a document that would comprehensively plan conservation activities, investment plans, and tourism development. The analysis of many elements and factors has enabled indicate a number of investments activities that, without limiting the protection of the historic values of Zamość, simultaneously improve the tourism infrastructure of the historic area. This is, among others, I would like to show only a few examples. So that was the connection of the old town with a lake, which is very close to the city. Secondly, that was the land development in front of the Zamoyski Palace as a public space connecting the palace with the old town complex. Construction of a multifunctional cultural center in the buffer zone, restricting car traffic and parking in the old town area, distribution of activities organized on the Grand Market, organizing a city bike system. Finally, I would like to emphasize that measurements to improve the tourist infrastructure in Zamość could be proposed, of course, without the whole attitude and without the analysis carried out in the management plan. However, now these all proposals forming part a comprehensive program for the protection and development of the historical downtown of Zamość. The program which conservators have agreed with the city managers and stakeholders. Therefore, summing up, management plan for the historic city is a tool that allows to formulate different goals and to build a compromise between stakeholders in their implementation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Congratulations. You're the daily winner coming in before time. Congratulations for that. There'll be a prize after. And now we have if you take a seat here, if you don't mind. And now we have from Visby, Sweden. You're going to take the stage together? Yes. All right. The stage is yours. Varsågod, lycka till.
Last presentation before lunch. So let me start by asking how many of you have been to Gotland? I see quite a few. That's great. Well, the Hanseatic town of Visby is located on the island of Gotland, and it's about 100 kilometers off the main coast of Sweden, in the middle of the Baltic Sea. We have a total population of about 59,000, of which 24,000 live in Visby, and of these, about 3,000 live within the walled medieval town, which is the World Heritage Site. So Gotland is one of the most popular summer destinations in Sweden, with about 2 million visitors yearly. And to date, these have been mainly domestic visitors, but increasingly we see international tourism growing. And in 2018, we had a new cruise pier established. And this has really reinforced the need for good strategies to safeguard heritage by learning from other places where over-tourism has become a problem. So I really take a lot of the advice that we've heard so far today. And for me, over-tourism is not so much about numbers of people. It's one use for a specific purpose that is pushing out other uses and purposes of the city. The Hanseatic town of Visby was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1995 as the most intact European, Northern European, I should say, walled trading town. And the 3.5 kilometer long medieval wall dates to the 13th century, and it's of high authenticity value, really. It's one of the main reasons for inscriptions. However, in addition, there are also over 200 medieval houses and plenty of Romanesque and Gothic church ruins. However, Visby was also nominated as an inhabited historic town, and the town has several distinctive layers up until present time. When it comes to maintaining a living town, how do we ensure that tourism does not threaten the vitality and quality of life of local communities? I think it's important to ask questions, as they can also guide us. How do we preserve a multifunctional living inner city all year around? Finally, how do we achieve heritage-led development and people-centered conservation? And Visby, of course, has faced similar challenges as many other towns. We've had a changing functional structure of the inner city. We've had strong privatization and gentrification processes. I think there's also a need to avoid staged authenticity and protect the city as a living habitat, and we've heard several examples raising this issue. So we've been working on a new management plan, and the process was initiated in 2017. And new goals and actions are currently being formulated based on integrated site management and stakeholder participation. And this includes everything from how do we maintain a living town to managing change through heritage-led development. So the ongoing work in Visby seeks to draw both on the goals of Agenda 2030 and also, of course, addressing the historic urban landscape approach. And of course, here for cities, goal 11 is particularly important because it deals with making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, particularly important for World Heritage cities. The UNESCO recommendation on the historic urban landscape, which we've already heard about today, refers to mass tourism as one of the key challenges facing cities in the 21st century, stressing the importance of tourism-related functions contributing to the well-being of local communities by ensuring economic and social diversity. So it offers a holistic approach to heritage values, and it deals with the question of managing change accordingly. This is just to show you the organization of this management plan process. So we have a project group with 7 theme-based working groups. And when we're dealing with sustainable tourism, we find that actually a lot of these groups are dealing with matters relating to sustainable tourism. So it's certainly complex and something where we need to work in an integrated and coordinated manner. So last week, we organized a World Heritage Forum, which is really an opportunity for broad-based stakeholder participation, which of course is so important in World Heritage conservation. So, utilizing the UNESCO World Heritage Sustainable Tourism Toolkit constituted an important starting point for the working group on sustainable tourism, which Monica Frisk is going to tell you more about very soon. And we found that in order to implement these guides, we really needed to do so within the realities of budgetary constraint and also to optimize resources on the ground. So we started with working closely with another World Heritage site in Sweden, Falun, which has a long experience working with these guides. And particularly important with this Sustainable Tourism Working Group was to have this mix of expertise from tourism and heritage sectors. I think this is really fundamental. And I'm going to hand over to you, Monica, and you will tell us more about the actual achievements so far.
Thank you very much. I will try to be as fast as I can. And good afternoon, everybody. Dzień dobry. I represent the local tourism association in Gotland as well as the local cruise network. And as Irene has mentioned before, we, within the framework on the holistic management plan for the World Heritage, we formed a sustainable tourism working group with expertise from tourism and heritage sectors. And the task was to look at different challenges related to increased tourism in the World Heritage Site, using the UNESCO toolkit, as been mentioned before, as a source and a tool to process different aspects. And also, furthermore, to create goals to achieve a sustainable development and avoiding over-tourism in Visby and in Gotland as well. And the tasks were, as also is mentioned here, to produce a sustainable visitors policy, to safeguard cultural and natural resources, to create a code of conduct, to seek solutions for climate leadership, to create fair business relations, and to achieve local community engagement. And those things have been mentioned many times here today before, so I guess we are all on the right track here. So after quite an extensive process during the spring, with meetings, workshops, and seminars, the group finally formulated the following goals to be achieved. By producing an impact assessment, we'll be able to set a limit of maximum carrying capacity for Visby and also for vulnerable parts within the World Heritage Site. By creating tools for optimal steering of visitors' flows, this will avoid additional burden on the vulnerable parts of the site and at the same time also create a better experience for the visitors. The local businesses, such as the restaurants, the shops, etc., is also given a bigger possibility to take part of an economic growth through the created trails within the destination. And of course, maps, apps, and so on will be presenting the trails to help the visitors along the way. And also this will be a way to better monitor larger groups and in order to avoid congestion within the site. To develop a code of conduct to address aspired behavior, respect and enjoy, I think it's Amsterdam that is using that expression, and I really like that, is a way to seek both awareness and engagement with the visitor as well as for the local community. We will also look at finding ways to engage the visitor, to create a call of action by, for example, giving a contribution to help save the wall. And the picture you see on the right-hand side is an event that took place on the 20th anniversary, I think, where we had a day where we would embrace the wall, so everybody was hugging the wall. And how do you help? How do you contribute as a visitor? Well, that can be done in many ways by, for example, creating competitions, using, of course, social media, supporting the community in different ways, because we know that the visitor today really want to help. They want to be circular visitors as well. Climate leadership. Over-tourism through cruise tourism especially is not only a local debate, it's a national and international issue which is constantly increasing and has to be addressed and handled. Climate leadership involves all different areas and businesses within the destination, from transportation to hotel management. And the goals here is to put together with the companies to produce and present more green experiences, for instance, to create smart and attractive solutions for transportation within the World Heritage and so on. And also, of course, to work closely with the local companies in order for them to work in a more sustainable way. And finally, to increase the work that we have been doing from the World Heritage perspectives into a broader destination plan for the whole of Gotland. So that's what we are in the beginning of doing. The implementation of that plan is actually starting as we are speaking now. And furthermore, to collaborate internationally, and especially here you can see on the slide, with Cruise Baltic Association, which is an association of 29 destinations in the Baltic Sea area, where a new sustainability manifesto was introduced and will be worked on for the future now in Copenhagen in April 2019. Thank you. Give it over to you.
Okay. Is there more?
So, if you don't mind, a bit of a surprise here now. I actually just wanted to sum up our general conclusions and just to finish off by saying that a guiding principle to achieve sustainable tourism in urban areas is really about defending the city as a multifunctional and diverse living entity and asking questions about what defines a city. And this, of course, requires both people-centered conservation and community-based tourism. Developing sustainable tourism policy within the management plan for the Hanseatic town of Visby through the historic urban landscape approach required interaction with several other fields and working groups during the management plan process. I think equally important also was integrating World Heritage perspectives into the broader destination management on Gotland as a whole and other strategies for regional development. And finally, this is very finally, there is a significant potential in trying to use World Heritage sites as platforms for sustainable development and in addressing urban heritage issues in an increasingly complex and fragile existence of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right. I know everyone's getting hungry. I can feel the stomachs are rumbling. Mine is as well. I don't want to get in between, but we have such a great panel. I just want to ask a really few quick questions. I had to think one thing when I was thinking Visby, which I know well. I've been there many times. I would sort of ask this. If you have a cruise ship that has 5,000 people and you have a town of 10, is there any way to have 5,000 people on a cruise ship coming ashore daily or a couple times a week and have sustainable tourism with a city of 10? Is there any way that that works? Is there any way to square that circle? I would say no. Yet, in Visby and in many other cities, in little towns in the fjords in Norway, they're inviting these giant ships in to these places that are already getting overnight visitors. And I don't see how the math works, especially when these people get all the food on the ship, half the excursion money stays on the ship, they use the toilet, they buy a postcard, they buy a t-shirt, and they get back on the ship. How this math works in any way, shape, or form, I'm open to it, but I can't see it. Let me say this. We were talking about UNESCO things happening outside this buffer zone. There's this article in The Guardian from 2017 that says, it's called UNESCOcide, is getting branded by UNESCO the kiss of death for a site. And what to do about it. And what I was thinking about is when you get this designation, it's almost like we need a second designation. Like one that says you get a designation, and then the other one says, this site can fend off against the visitors better than this one can. They've already put in a carrying capacity. They already have a limit, so that even if 100 million people showed up, they couldn't all get in because they have careful limits set up. If places are protected, should they get a different designation, or even if they're green even as well, if they have a sustainable environmental policy, should they be getting a different designation? Should we have a series like platinum, gold, and a whatever, or a green and a? Is it nuanced enough? This thing that we're handing out, that you're handing out. I'm not. You're at 1,092 now, aiming for 3,000 by the no. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Well, first of all, UNESCO, we're the secretariat. We don't hand out anything.
Okay.
It's the World Heritage Committee, it's an intergovernmental committee, it's the countries who are deciding, and the representatives. It's a convention, which means it's agreed upon by all the countries. We're not going to touch the convention. And the convention does not give any, there's no room for, it's not a certification like a LEED certification, gold, silver, platinum, no. But I think it's a very important question that you're asking, because the question is, what is the impact of World Heritage designation on sites? And that impact really depends on what policies and what management systems are put in place, what plans are put in place by the the powers that be, whether it's at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, or the national level. It's the legislative system, it's the institutional structures, it's the resources that are put in, and it's all the thought that goes into planning. How you want to attract visitors, what kind of visitors you want to attract, what you want to show them, how you want to present it, what education and what way you're able to engage with the local people, and always keep in front of your mind the idea that the local people have to benefit from whatever it is you're doing. That it's World Heritage, as I said, it matters a lot to the rest of the world, but it matters a lot to the people who have had it for all these centuries in many cases and have nurtured it and cared for it. So if there aren't benefits coming down to the local people, then it isn't going to work. So the UNESCO side happens not because of the label, but because of how that label is being implemented in the policies and plans.
Okay. It just seems like we need something that gives some of these heritage sites some kind of power to be able to say to their city councils, hey, we could be getting this blank status, a higher, more publicized status, if we did the following things, like tour buses couldn't leave their engines idling. People had to be respectful with what they ate, respectful with the clothes they wore. We've seen a lot of people showing respect. Maybe having no rolling luggage. That bugs the locals who are waking them up early in the morning and late at night. Tour groups of 10 people or less. There's all these kind of things that could be done, but they need some kind of a motivation to get there.
We could try maybe testing out the sustainable tourism toolkit that we've developed.
Ah, good plug.
Peter De Bruyn, my colleague, is here, and we could, and I'm sure in the next couple of days he will be talking more about this. And we are developing these sort of tools. So as I said, the historic urban landscape recommendation, putting it in place, what are the ways that this could be done, integrating the management plan with the urban development plan, with the tourism development plan, looking at sustainable tourism tools, being able to measure some of the impacts. These are all ways, and these are guides and tools that's what we're working on to develop and assist.
All right, and does it give them a new something that they can kind of hang their hat on to say, now we've used all these tools, and now we have, I guess Peter will cover that tomorrow. We'll save that for another day. One last thing, Sagrada Familia. Did you want to add something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I would like to ask to tell something about this tool you were talking about. Because us, as I said before, in Aranjuez are already testing that tool within this scientific committee on sustainable tourism. And I must say that at least what it brings is for you to think about what you can do and what you cannot do. And it's also about thinking what things are going on really it's kind of reflecting on what's going on in your side. So at least it's a point to start. It is not that it brings a very nice solution to all the problems, but in fact, it makes you reflect at least of what you have to work on the future.
You know what? Let's end that right there. I think our stomachs are all rumbling. I'm going to have an important lunch announcement. It's only on the first floor. There's a sign out there that says it's on floors 1 and 2. It's only on floor 1, so not on this level here, but up the steps where we just had coffee, you will find a nice buffet lunch, and we'll join back after lunch is over. Look forward to seeing you then. Have a lovely meal. And thank you to our panel.